Have you ever wondered what mathematics has looked like across time and space? Well, within these next few minutes, you'll have your answer. With the help of my friends, we will see how mathematics was used in different time periods in different countries on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean.
We are now going to visit one family's farmhouse in England in the 17th century. The man who lived here made his income from selling his crops, sheep, and cheese. While the farmer prepared his food for the market, it was his wife's responsibility to make the family's meals. Unlike the measuring cups like you might use when you're baking or cooking, the farmer's wife did not use such exact measurements. She would have known about how much of an ingredient to add, so her recipes might just call for her to hurl in a good quality of currants or to add butter the size of a walnut. A saying that they had at the time was "a pint, a pound, the whole world round." This means that for many ingredients, like for milk, a pint like this one would weigh about a pound. Although this rule does not work for everything, like for flour and water, it was a popular rule of thumb that some people still use today.
Welcome to Germany in the 1700s. While there was no standard unit of measurement, objects were measured by common objects, like eggs from the chickens. Also during this place and time, the farmers had to pay taxes to the local prince using crops or money. To measure for buildings and other things, Germans, especially timbermen, would use Roman numerals to mark beams in order to rebuild the house at a later time, like the picture shows. Women had to measure in order to make clothing, where they had to create patterns for each individual person. Here in 1700s West Africa, there was no standardized unit of measurement. It is possible that men used the size of their feet as a standard measurement, but there was not a consistent measurement amongst the people. All the houses had the same geometric shape to them as well. Pottery was one of the main commodities that was sold amongst the tribes in West Africa. Usually the same person made the pots, so that one person knew which sizes were appropriate for different uses. In addition to pottery, weaved goods and daughters were sold or exchanged, particularly during arranged marriages.
Welcome to Northern Ireland in the 1700s. This house is an example of a farmhouse. Measurement was used in many ways. First, weavers used looms to weave and used the reel to measure how much yarn was needed. When just the right amount of yarn was used on the reel, it would make a popping sound. Carpenters also used geometry to measure area, and surveyors used trigonometry. Rulers were being used during this time, but some measurements were still informal, such as using amble. Weavers and seamstresses used the wheel and counted the number of revolutions in determining how much material that they needed for things such as baskets and clothing.
Hi, I am a young Native American girl. Welcome to my wigwam. My people often use geometry in order to build our homes. They do so by choosing a spot to be the center, and then they take string and measure from the center in order to stake out the perimeter. Then they begin to pull the arch together with saplings. Our houses are positioned in the east, and we are buried facing the west for religious reasons. A lot of time and effort is put into building our homes, and we really take pride in the process. For keeping track of time, our calendar is based off of the turtle shell. We look at the number of segments on the outer shell of a turtle, which is 28, representing the number of days in a moon. There are 13 segments in the outer part of the shell of a turtle, representing each one of the 13 moons in a lunar year cycle. So during the course of a year, there are actually 13 cycles of the moon, each lasting approximately 28 days each. We have just arrived in the 1700s, and our house and ways of life are still coming together. We have taken advantage of the natural resources such as the trees. We basically use the length of our trees to determine how big our house will be. We have not yet formed a set of measurement to follow. We do believe in an exchange economy where we use books to keep track of our goods in order to avoid debt. Our main goal right now is to produce goods in order to get money from those who have an established money system.
We have finally made it to the 1820s. Unlike the past, they finally have a measuring system. This means they measured in feet and inches, just like you do today. Now, although they had a measuring system, it was just being introduced, so a lot of people still used an informal way to measure, such as using bushels, pecks, and rods. Bushels, like the one in this picture, were used to measure dry goods, like sugar or flour. They used rods as a way to measure land. The rods they used equaled about 16 feet in today's measurement. By the time the 1850s came along, the people in America finally had a standard measurement system. They even used the same standard measurement in the kitchen as we do today. They used measuring cups for baking and scales to weigh their sacks of grain, as shown in this picture. However, they didn't really follow any recipes. Children learned from their mothers instead. Children also began going to school, and they learned arithmetic. In their houses, it was clear that they understood time and money, as they had grandfather clocks and recipes lying around. Sewing was also still a large part of women's lives, in which they used patterns and different strategies of measurement to sew different types of articles of clothing.
So there you go. Thanks to the Frontier Culture Museum, we have evidence of mathematics existing in different places and time periods, from West Africa to Europe to the United States. Math has evolved over time to be what it is now today.
Some legends are told, some turn to dust or to gold, but you